Hey, and welcome to VFX Tutors. I'm Josh, and in this tutorial we're going to be continuing with our VFX lighting of our portrait model. In our previous ones we've done a lot of single light portrait lighting. Then the one before we've just done this, we did a key and a fill. So now we're going to go on to the more common sort of lighting you'll come across in VFX, and that's sort of 3-point lighting. So that's a key, fill, and a rim light. So yeah, so let's get started. I won't go on, but yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this little mini series of lighting, and hope you enjoyed the VFX FX pack for the stairwell. I'll do more of those, but yeah, let's get going with this tutorial. So I've got my Maya file open with all my statue and all the bits from the package, and in our previous one we did where are we? We did the split with fill. So we could go through all of these, but they're kind of just variations of the ones that we've already done. So you've got a split and broad, split and short, which we've already done the short and the split. So you can see there's just they're very small differences, but you can see the difference between a split, it's more split in half the face, and the broad is showing quite a lot of the face. So when you have a split short, you have a short face in more darkness of some of the half. So you see in this one, it's a short lighting, but it's split quite prominently down the middle. And a split broad, same here. So it's kind of a very contrasting line across the face in darkness and in a brightness. And we kind of did a key with a closed softbox. That's almost similar to the key and fill, but it's much softer lighting around here, as you can see. And there's just very different variations, and there's some more creative ones. There's a loop where they change the triangle of light, pointing a little bit more down to the chin, showing a bit more of the top of the face. Like a butterfly, which is, these are just ones that are just off this reference, but it's good to have a little play around with these. I don't think I need to, at this point, I think you're probably way more capable than just to have a go at them yourselves, because it's just placing lights around and playing with the spread and intensity and just trying to match. It's mostly really looking at these, because these are really good reference of what the sort of lighting's trying to achieve. And you can see there's a lot of symmetry here, with a very light shadow going under the nose. And you don't need me to do a tutorial on that, because if you've done the first ones, you can quite easily place a light and play with the spread and stuff. And the same with here. It's just two lights, completely removing most of the shadows, so it's quite flat. Then you've got some more of these creative ones, like the badger, which you got two lights coming back, so you've got a casting shadow across the face, and you kind of got that little badger stripe. So we've done quite a few single lighting, and we've done two light lighting, one with a key and a fill. So what we're actually going to go on to next is key, fill, and hair light. Most commonly called key, fill, and rim light, because it's just, if you look here, it's catching the edge of the highlights of the hair. But yeah, this is pretty much your basic 3-point lighting setup. So you've got your key and your fill on either side of the face, and you've got this highlight up here. So this is what we're going to be doing in this one. So let's start with creating our key. So I'm just going to go to my perspective. Hide that. I'm just going to create an Arnold light, area light. Just bring this up. And I know I say this on every time, but just remember, you can scale it up to view it, but just remember, every time you scale your light, you're changing the spread of it. So the bigger the light's going to get, the softer it's going to get. So just be aware of that. I think I've said that every time so far, so I'm sure you're getting bored of me saying it, but it's a good thing to always remember. So I'm really just going to set up an extremely basic 3-point lighting setup here, just from the perspective view. So I'm just going to call this my key. Let's make it a little bit obvious. I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to call this my fill. And my fill light wants to be pretty much on the other side, unless we're doing a split sort of lighting where we want that 50-50 lighting of quite contrasting shadows. But that's not on here. You can see that it's very on the reference. It's very nicely lit spread. You can see where the main light's coming from, but it's also filling in those dark areas. Hence, what's called fill light. So, we can look through these lights if we want to through the light lister, but I don't think we need to at the moment. We can do that in a different one, in a different tutorial. Sorry. So we've got our key. Then we're going to use our fill. Then we've got this sort of rim light. And so I'm just going to duplicate this. I'm just going to move this over here. And it's called a hair light on this one, but I think this is, in photography terms, I think mostly it's just called a hair light or a rim light, but most commonly known as a rim light because it gives you that sort of rim lighting. Cool. So probably because if we have our rim light too low, you'll think it's going to cast highlights lower down. It might look a little bit odd. We kind of want the highlights on top, so we're not getting highlights. If we look at the reference, we've got really minor highlights here and almost none here. It's very soft. But the main sort of highlights are coming off the hair, mostly because it's probably more specular and glossy, so it's going to show up more highlights, which we'll have to sort of adjust our model to. So obviously this is just a basic shader with nothing on it at all. So we might add some extra things to the shader to sort of spice it up a little bit. Cool. So the grand scheme of things, this is our absolute bare bones 3-point lighting. We've got our key, our fill light, and our rim light. So let's go to our Arnold render view. And let's see what this looks like. Probably will be absolutely dark because we need to change the intensity of things. So I always like to start with my key first. I know everyone has different ways of doing things. I just prefer starting because it gives me a good level of my maximum sort of lighting that I want to do. So I'm just going to go straight in with 10. And I think I'm not looking through the right camera, that's why I'm not seeing it. Cool. So we can see a very, very faint light here. So let's change it to 12. Let's go to 13.5. Also, let's unhide our backdrop. You might have to... Cool. So our backdrop back. So I'm just going to go to my key, and I just want to bring this up so it's nicely sort of lit. And I really want to focus on getting, because whilst I'm working on my key light, it gives me, it makes it easier for me to get the sort of look that I want, because once you have all your lights going at once, it's hard to sort of see what's going on. So we can sort of see with my lighting at the moment, my nose is sort of like, it's not giving me what I want. I'm not getting that sort of really nice sort of Rembrandt sort of lighting look where the nose and the shadows casting off in the right place, and it's kind of occluding the eye. So I need to change my key light. Let's just pause that whilst that's going. So I'm just going to bring my key light up. And then I'm just going to pull it around. Just so we start getting this sort of cast off that we want. And don't worry that it's quite harsh at the moment, because we will clean this with the fill light. So it's definitely still quite dark, I feel. So let's go up to 15. Maybe 15.2. See, we've got some sort of fairly alright lighting here. We can see it's. Let's see. Let's just region render that bit so we can just see what the cast off's like. So yeah, this is alright. I'm quite happy with that. So now let's move on to our fill. So if I just go, let's just do I like to do like a quick sort of render of this, then we can do a snapshot of it. Just so we can sort of compare. So got our fill light. I'm going to go straight in with a 6 on that. Cool. We start seeing now it's actually doing something. So if we bring this up to 12, we can see it's doing quite a lot, doing a lot more than we want. So I want to bring this down to 11. What we can also do is hide our key and just see what our fill light's doing. Because we don't necessarily need it to be super bright. We just want it to be filling the right area. And at the moment, we're kind of doing a split sort of look. So if I just bring up the exposure of that. So we don't want to brighten it, otherwise it's counteracting our sort of fill. So if we just bring up the exposure, we can sort of see that we're filling the side of the face here, but we kind of want to bring it more broadly on so we're getting a lot of the face, so it sort of kills out some of these shadows. Otherwise we're going to be creating more shadows on the face. And you can be as creative as you want with it. I know there's not set rules really, but it's a good guide. So we want to try and fill this face with a decent amount of light. Obviously it's looking quite bright at the moment because we've got our exposure way up. So now if we put that back down to 0, it's quite light. So now if we turn on unhide our key, we can see that it's still quite dark on the nose, so we might need to bring up the brightness of it. Because we don't have hugely dark shadows, and this is still quite dark on the face. So we want to make sure that we're kind of still getting shadows, but it's not super dark shadows. Okay, that's my cat making noises. Cool, so we can keep going around and we kind of got this, still got quite a lot of shadow here. And this is pretty much from our rim light. So let's see if we can bring this up. 13.5. Let's bring our key up a little bit more as well. Let's bring that up to, let's try 16. That's quite bright. Maybe too much, 15.5. Because we don't want to go too crazy with the intensity because we've still got one more light to sort of adjust. Because at the end, when they're all on there, we're going to be working together in their own little way. So we don't want to try and get it right without all the lights and sort of a good starting point. Otherwise you end up just fighting with the lights. So we have got some sort of cast off here. You know what, I'm probably going to actually See what it's like if I do rotate him slightly so he's more faced on. See if we get the... Cool. We can see we've got quite a darkening here, so I think we need to bring this fill light in more. And you can change the exposure, or you can bring it in closer. So if we bring it in closer, you can see how it's going to affect it. Obviously, we've now kind of lost our shadow on our nose. It doesn't have to be a huge amount. It could be because we just may need to change our spread on our key. So it's a little bit more like a spotlight. So obviously if we bring this right down, we can now see it's making this light a bit more sort of sharper, not sharper, but kind of more prominent. And it's where you got to kind of play with your spread. So if we have that on, that's super soft across the face. So we're getting very, it's quite hard to tell because of the shadows. We're working with a grey object, but you can sort of see the highlights and changes of it. Cool, so it's a pretty good starting point here. So what we'll do is now move on to our rim light. So what I'll do, I'll just actually I'll turn these off, and the rim light's always usually quite bright, so we'll just go straight up with like 15. And you can see what as it's doing here, it's kind of casting a sort of exactly what it's saying. Like, so on here it says it's the hair light, but the rim light, so we're getting some nice lighting of the rim of the subject. So as we can see here, it's more pushed over to the right of the subject. So if we can put our rim light a little bit more over there. And the rim light's always more, it can be more of a spotlight, so its shadows are sharper. Like say you have a play of it. Oh, not exposure, that was the wrong one. So if our spread's on 1, so it's quite soft. You can see this little line around the neck and the cheek. So if we brought that right down and turned it into a bit more of a spotlight, remove some of the softness from it, you can see that the rim lighting is much like tighter and harder. And it really depends on how you want to light this. Is like I said, there's no set rules. It's just a good guideline to go by, and it's just kind of popular lighting techniques that usually look quite nice. So you can go crazy with it, really. So what I'm doing, I'm just going to turn on unhide those lights and see what that looks like. So we'll let it render through quickly and just see and we'll do a comparison between our first one, because we can't really see much of the rim light, so we might actually add some simple, I don't know why it's taking very long. Let's see if I haven't got silly, that's probably why. Cool, so it's quite hard to see the rim light because we don't actually have any. This is just a completely soft object, and we have no specular on it. But we'll just quickly let this. In fact, you don't need to render all that. We can just region render it. Be a little bit faster. Then once that's done, we'll just compare it between the two. And you see it's looking quite nice already. It's not flat. We've got some shadow cast here. We've got some rim light up here. Not very much though. We can't really see it because it's probably more likely because unless it's particularly designed that way, pretty much most things isn't completely matte. So this is not a great sort of subject to be doing on. So if we just stop that, we can compare between the two. We have rotated it between, but you can sort of see it's really nice and soft, and we're picking up all this sort of lighting. But it's quite hard to see the rim. We can boost it, so let's go crazy with 18, and that'll probably not look well. It looks all right. It's kind of not what we want to do though, because we're kind of forcing it. But it works. If we let this go through, we can see our sort of rim lighting here. And we're getting the sort of same effect that we want. And obviously, whatever you're sort of rendering, it's going to react different. So if you make one sort of basic 3-point light rig, it's not always necessarily going to work with every single subject, because unless you've created an object that's very sort of default, which has got a lot of some decent spec, gloss and textures and stuff like that, yeah, it'll work. But because we're kind of working with something that just has a very flat diffuse, it's probably not going to give us the best results. But we've got something here and that's quite nice. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that, to be honest. We've got everything that we've kind of looked for, and in basic 3-point lighting is getting this sort of rim light here, our key, and even though it's our key light here, it's not super sort of contrasting. We can still see it's a split soft box. It's not a broad. So if we wanted it a bit more broad, we'd bring the light round so it's got more on the face. So we're definitely a sort of a split soft. So my dogs are also now going crazy outside. Cool. So we can just let's go to our model. Let's save that one. And on our specular roughness, let's just add a noise. Nothing special. It might take a while to update. Oh, didn't like that. I think I need to upgrade my PC. Oh, it did do it. It's just not doing it. Cool. So I don't want this to go into like a shading tutorial or anything, but let me just pull that off to the side quickly. Oh, it's very slow at the moment. I don't know why. Cool. So we can sort of see our spec there, but it's Let me just organise this quickly because it's a bit of chaos. We probably don't need that, to be honest. We can do it all in here. So let's just bring up our weight. Let's go to our... Let's bring our frequency down. And you know what, let's... I always like to, if I'm working with my spec, I'll always put my specular AOV on there because it's just easier to see. Like I say, this is not turning into a shading tool. It's just something you can sort of have a play with. Cool. So we've got our spec. Oh, we probably want to turn that off. Okay, so we're on billow. So now we're back on Perlin noise. It's pretty good. So now we can actually see what's going on. Although it really doesn't seem like it's updating. Let's... Okay, so I'm making a mess of this. Let's not worry about that. Let's just break it. Let's get some... That wasn't working. I think it was. Maybe I just was being very impatient. Does not seem to be updating. Okay, I don't know why that's not working. Anyway, let's not worry about that. You can just get to our render view. Oh my god, I've been selecting the wrong thing on the wrong shader. I'm on my backdrop shader, so I was wondering why it wasn't working. So sorry about that. That was rather stupid. Let's go back to our specular pass. So I can see how I sort of got super soft. Probably won't even notice it that much, but it just boosts that key light, rim light, sorry. So we could probably bring that down to maybe 16 so it's not so bright. Cool, so yeah. Maybe even, let's put that back up to 16, it's not very prominent, is it? Cool, so I think we're pretty much done here. This has been quite a long tutorial for 3-point lighting, and most of it's just been me messing around. But yeah, I hope it's helped. And yeah, I hope it gets you started with sort of lighting and getting you to understand sort of methods and workflows of how you want to sort of approach things. So yeah, if you've enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. It really does help. And thank you for watching.